Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're going to respect everyone's time. We want to start on time and finish on time when we set up our meetings to honor everyone's busy schedules. And we understand that you also have families at home that you're going to be having to take care of this evening. So we'll try to make this as brief as possible, but know that we will be available to answer questions also once we are done with this meeting here. So today we have a town hall to give an update on COVID and the protocols that we are following here at Feaster Charter. We want to be able to respond to some of the questions, concerns, and also just to give an update on the protocols as we are being asked to enforce them, to roll them out, and to ensure that everyone is abiding by them. Before we start, we also have a couple of norms that we want to follow. Everyone coming in should already be muted, but if in case you are not muted, we ask that you please mute yourself. This helps us out with feedback so that we can hear each other better. We will have an opportunity at the end of the presentation for question and answer, where you will be able to raise your digital hand if you're able to find it on the menu items down below on your screen, or just raise your hand physically. We hopefully will be able to see it to answer a question. And then also, if you have any questions, you can also post your questions on the chat as we present so that you do not forget your question. If for one reason or another we do not answer a question, know that we will have these questions archived and we will get back to them. Those of you that also read the updates that came to you through our school messenger during the weekend, you saw that there was also a Padlet, which is another online application where some of you already filled it in with questions that we will have answers to also. Thank you. We're going to go on to our next slide here and talk a little bit about the agenda. So again, I talked a little bit about the update that we're going to be sharing with you around our COVID situation. I want to remind everyone that safety is our priority. Understand that that is what is driving our daily experiences here at school. The safety of your kids, the safety of the adults that are working with your kids, and generally in the safety of the community. So thank you for helping us understand that that is what we are working on. As we proceed on a day-to-day basis. We're going to review just the cases that we've had here and what you should know about the process that we follow when cases are identified. We're also going to talk a little bit about independent contracts for students that are having to be quarantined at home, safety precautions that we also want you all to help us out with out in the community, because this is a community effort. This is not just an effort from the staff here at Feaster Charter or you alone, the parents. This is an effort between the school and the community. We will share some testing information that some of you may still have questions over: where to get tested, how to get tested, and what information we need in order to allow your students back on campus. And then, of course, at the end, we will have an opportunity for question and answer. Thank you. I'm going to turn it over right now. Actually, no, we're going to go to one more slide, and I'm going to introduce the team that is working with us here at Feaster Charter, in particular to deal with the COVID situation. Of course, many of you already know Dr. Dominguez and Dr. Slayman, who are here presenting with us. And also very important, Ms. Gonzalez, our attendance health clerk, has been really pivotal, and most likely the one that you have been receiving calls if you unfortunately had to have a call for a close contact or because your son or daughter may have been exposed to the virus. We also have Miss Tamomi Thomas. She goes by Miss Tommy. She is our nurse. She is an exceptional individual who really enjoys working and helping kids on a daily basis. We all do, let me just say that. But Miss Tommy especially is very, very well equipped to work with your son and or daughter when they come into the nurse's office. She's very patient with them. She's very calm, and she's very understanding of the kids, and she helps them feel comfortable. So know that when we have to send your kid, your son or daughter, to the front office because of a potential exposure, they are well taken care of by our team. Of course, we also have other individuals in the front office. I'm not going to name everybody, but I did want to highlight Miss Tommy and Miss Gonzalez for the exceptional work that they have been doing. And we are here to support you all. Thank you. We're going to continue with the presentation. I'm going to turn it over to our administrative team.
Thank you, Mr. Villarreal. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Dominguez. I'm one of the principals here, the VAPA principal at Feaster Charter School. Thank you so much for being here with us. I know we have some staff members and some parents, and I just want to reiterate the importance of this conversation. I know that when we have conversations around COVID, there's sometimes a sense of heightened anxieties, and part of that reason is because we have all had different experiences with COVID, whether it is through our own personal experiences or experiences with our loved ones or family and or friends that we know of. And so we certainly cannot emphasize enough the importance that we are taking or the seriousness that we're taking in order to make sure that we are following all of the protocols that are given by the district as well as by San Diego County. And so I want to just give everyone a little preview of the information that we'll be sharing this afternoon. And what you're seeing right here on your screen is the data. So we'll talk about our data that we've been collecting since the start of the school year, which we're now 4 weeks in, if you can believe that. We'll also talk about what processes we take when students or individuals, so students or adults, are identified as being a positive COVID case, a close contact, and what is considered to be symptomatic. So these are all important questions that we'll dive a little more into the details, just so that we make sure that everyone has a full understanding of the process that we take to make sure that students and staff members and ultimately family members are safe. And so what you're seeing here on this screen is our data for the last 4 weeks. So in the blue, you'll notice the blue represents the adults who have been contracted COVID, and then the yellow are students who have contracted COVID. And so as you can see, the first week we had 1 adult and 6 students. The second week we had 1 adult and 4 students. The third week we had 3 adults, and the fourth week we had 4 adults. And this is as of last Friday. So what we do on our end is we track the data from Wednesday to Wednesday, because that is Wednesday is when we started. And so each week starts with a Wednesday. And so what I want to highlight especially is that we have had in total 19 cases. Some of these students never made it to the first day. So what that means is on week 1, when we started on Wednesday, we received information that some students were COVID positive and never made it on campus. And so I do want to just highlight and reflect that we have as of this point 17 students out of 1,150 students. And so part of the responsibility that our contract tracing team, what their responsibility is to really prevent the spread of COVID. So as soon as we find a positive case, we are on it when it comes to making sure that any individuals that were close to that positive case are notified and then are given further instructions. So I'll get into that a little bit more, but I just want to again, highlight and be as transparent as possible. We are not in any way hiding this data. In fact, we communicate every single time we have a positive case to our families as well as our staff members, and it'll be an email that's sent to you. So anytime we have a positive case on our end, we send an email letting our families know and our staff members know that a positive case has been identified. And so here's our data. We'll be updating it along the way as we progress through this school year. So the next few slides that I'll be sharing or talking about really are going to be discussing the 3 questions that I just mentioned. And so we're going to start off with the first question, which is, what if an individual is symptomatic? And something that I think is important to acknowledge, and acknowledge is the word, is that when we talk about COVID, especially with our students, we notice that sometimes their body gets a little tight, they get nervous, right? And so we want to take every precaution necessary to make sure that we are not, that we're doing what we can to mitigate the situation. So in a situation where an individual is symptomatic, the symptomatics, or the symptoms rather, are defined in this top box right here. And you can go ahead and read them. They include fever, chills, cough. I'm not going to read all of them, but these are the symptoms that our nurse and our health attendant, this is what we're looking for, along with our teachers. So if a student is sharing that they don't feel well, and one of their symptoms or one of their areas that they don't feel well in fall within these symptoms here, they are immediately sent to the front office so that our nurse can assess the situation and then determine next steps. And so the answer to this question is, if an individual is symptomatic, call Miss Melissa or Miss Tommy. If they are at home, you can report the absence that way, or if they are here on campus, then the teacher would send them to the front office. Now, the next immediate question is, how can my child get back into school? At what point after they are symptomatic can students return to school? And so it really is dependent on the case. However, generally speaking, there are a few ways that the child can either remain at school or return to school within a timely fashion, depending on whether or not the symptoms are improving. So if we have a doctor's note indicating that your child has allergies and may suffer from occasional runny nose or an occasional sore throat, if that is documented by a doctor and we have it on file, then that's something that our nurse and Miss Tommy and Miss Melissa consider as they are assessing the student. So that may lead to the child staying on campus if they are not, if they have like a stuffy nose or a sore throat, if it's documented by the doctor. If it's not documented, then what we are required to do, or what we ask families to do, is to have the child return when their symptoms are improving and when the child has a negative PCR test. So I know that that sometimes the verbiage can be a little confusing. There's 2 types of tests. There's a PCR test and an antigen test. But when an individual is feeling symptomatic, they do need a PCR test, which is a little more it takes a little more time than an antigen test. Most antigen tests, or at least the ones at the districts, you can have results in 15 minutes. The PCR tests take a little longer, sometimes a day or 2. So what that means in terms of the amount of days that students are out for, it can range anywhere from 1 to 10 days. And so that's why it's important, if you are noticing that your child is symptomatic and not feeling well, that you immediately communicate with Miss Tommy or Miss Melissa, and they can give you specifics on when your child can return to school. That last box that you're seeing right there, what this box is just where you can get tested. So Chula Vista Elementary School District currently is testing students and staff members. You can also get testing. We have a San Diego County website where there's a list of places you can get tested, and you can also get tested at your doctor's office. So we do have some options for you. And again, if you need that information, we're happy to share it. I know it's been posted on our class dojo as well as our weekly announcements, but if you need that, again, we're happy to share that. So the next question that we get is what happens when a positive student case is identified? Miss Tommy and Miss Melissa are very, very diligent about receiving notification when there has been a positive case. And so when that situation happens, our health office is notified immediately. And individuals are then asked to isolate for 10 days. So the purpose of isolation is that we are trying, the purpose is really that it's preventing somebody else from getting COVID-19. So we ask that the individual isolate for 10 days. On our end, on the school end, we then look at all of the close contacts that positive individual has been near. So I'm going to go through this rather slowly because it's very intricate in what the steps are. But essentially what that means is we look at the seating charts of every single class that child was in, including electives, after school clubs, and mind lab classes. So actually, let me take a step back. First, it's the classroom that they are enrolled in. That's number one. Then we look at the mind lab classes. Then we look at after school programs. We look to see if they are in the YMCA. We look to see if the individual is receiving outside groups in some other type of capacity, so that we can make sure that any individual, adult or student that was near a positive case is immediately identified, and we communicate with them. So we let them know, hey, somebody near you was identified as positive. Please make sure that you're monitoring for symptoms and return. And they also need to have a negative antigen or PCR test. So I know there have been a lot of phone calls recently letting parents know that you need to come pick up your child because they have been identified as a close contact, or they have been identified as someone who was close to an individual that tested positive. What we are trying to do on our end is to make sure that anybody that was near the child who tested, or individual rather, that tested positive, is aware, so that they can start monitoring their symptoms and take the extra precautions that they need in order to make sure that we're not spreading the virus. Additionally, we also disinfect the classroom. We go in with a special disinfectant to make sure that it is extra clean, essentially. And then lastly, we make sure that the community is aware via email of all positive cases. So what that means is we let the community know that there has been a positive case identified at Feaster. And so sometimes there are multiple cases in one day. Sometimes there's one case in one day. Sometimes there's no cases. And so depending on the day and the situation, that's what determines what kind of communication we send out to the entire community. So that's one type of communication, is letting everyone know that there's a positive case. We also have a second type of communication, which is letting the close contacts know. So along with the phone call that you receive from Miss Tommy or Miss Melissa, you also receive an email from the school letting the family know that they have been identified as a close contact. And there are very detailed instructions from the district as to what to expect and what to do. Now, of course, we also communicate that, but this is in written form, just so that you have something to reference in the event that you have a question during our closed office hours. And so the individuals who are both a close contact and individuals who are a close contact will receive 2 letters. The first one being that, or emails rather, the first one being that they are a close contact, and the second one being that there has been a positive case. So we're really trying to make sure that the community is aware and that all precautions are being taken to make sure that we are not having anything spread here at school. And so, as I mentioned, and as we kind of talked about earlier, at this point, we've had 19 total cases, including adults, which is approximately 1% of our population. Okay, so we've already started talking about this point in particular, or this question, which is, what if my student has been identified as a close contact? So I'm going to actually back up a little bit and first begin with the definition of a close contact. So a close contact is defined by someone being 6 feet of someone who has COVID-19 for 15 minutes or more. That's the definition. And so as we are on our end identifying who has been a close contact, we're looking at those seating charts that teachers have submitted to us. We're also asking that if teachers change their seating charts, that they update them and send them our way so that we're looking at the most current one in the event that we need to. So with close contacts, students can return to school with a negative antigen or a negative PCR test. As I mentioned earlier, the antigens seem to be a little bit faster in getting the results than the PCR test, but either one would work. And generally speaking, students can return 1 to 10 days from when last communicated with. Along with that, they must continue to self-monitor for symptoms. So if at any point a child or a student or individual rather is not feeling well or is beginning to feel symptomatic, please call our front office so that we can provide additional instructions and guidance on what the next steps will be. And lastly, the testing sites are also listed here as well. Okay. All right, and so this again is just another reminder as to what type of test students need to get when returning back to school. And again, so if you're symptomatic, if you're not feeling well, you need a PCR test. If you have no symptoms and you are considered a close contact, then you would need an antigen test. Okay. So now I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Slayman. And actually, before I do, I again just want to emphasize, we want to stress that we understand and we know that this is a very important process, and we are very diligent about making sure that every step is taken, that our files are updated. So as soon as there's been any updates from San Diego County of Ed or San Diego County, we receive them and we adjust as needed, because things are changing as has been the theme this year. They continue to change, and we are working very, very diligently and hard to make sure that we have the current information to assess the situation and make the right decision. Okay, Dr. Slayman.
Hi, good afternoon. Muy buenas tardes. Muchas gracias por estar con nosotros. Thank you again for being with us. And so I'm just going to go through just a couple more points. I know that you've been with us so far for about 30 minutes, but again, a very important topic, and we want to make sure you have the most accurate and up-to-date information. And so first and foremost, where can I get my student a COVID-19 test? So we highly recommend that you go first to a free county facility. And in the chat, what I'm doing is I'm putting a list of those no-cost testing options that are available to you as parents. So that would be our first recommendation, is to go to a free county facility. From there, you're also welcome to obviously go to your medical provider, whether that's Kaiser, Sharp, or whoever it is that is your medical provider. And as a final option would be our district office that's located on 84 East J Street in Chula Vista. They do tend to get impacted, and so we first recommend that you go to that free county facility. Again, the link is in the chat for you right now. And then from there to your medical provider, and last but not least, then to the district office to get either of those tests, the antigen or the PCR test. All right, so we've spoken a little bit about independent study packets and what those entail. And so if your student is sent home for either isolation or for quarantine, if they are isolated or quarantined for over 10 whole days, then we will be making sure that your student is sent home not only with an independent study packet, but also an iPad. An iPad so that is sent home so that you are able to communicate with the teacher, so that if your student has any problems, questions, or anything that they may need clarified, they do have that iPad with them. In addition to not only communicating with their teachers, we also recognize that their students may want to join a club. And so here we have on the screen, and we'll be sending this home again through our social media and all the other ways that we communicate with you through Class Dojo, Jupiter, and School Messenger. Our counseling department presents a join a club from home. And so there'll be 3 clubs to choose from 12:30 to 1 o'clock. On Monday, there'll be a game club. Wednesday, there'll be an art club, and Thursday will be a Disney club. And again, this is all for our students that are currently on an independent study contract, so that they're able to still continue to engage with their peers just while they are in their isolation or quarantine period. Something to note about the independent study packet is that it does need to be completed in whole if it is that the student is out for the whole 10 days or the whole 24 days, depending on their quarantine. And once they return to campus, their responsibility is to turn it into their teacher so that they can obtain credit not only for the classroom work that the teacher is assigned, but also for attendance purposes. So again, any student that is asked to quarantine or isolate for 10 days or the 24-day option will be sent home for an independent study contract as well as an iPad. So make sure that if your student does fall into any one of those scenarios throughout the school year, that Miss Melissa, she's the person who will send you home with this information. All right, and so just additional questions that we have received, what is Feaster Charter School doing to ensure that all students and staff are safe? So first and foremost, we do require that all individuals wear their masks indoors while students are present with them. And so this is every single day in all of our common areas and all of our classrooms, anywhere that students are, we do ask all individuals to wear their mask while indoors with students present. Again, symptomatic students are sent to the health office to determine appropriate next steps. And so that's been in communication with teachers. As teachers, if they notice any symptoms, they do send them down to the nurse, and then our nurse evaluates whether it is something where we need to take additional steps, like Dr. Dominguez stated, or whether the student is safe to return back to classroom. Adults who are symptomatic, they have to provide a negative PCR test before they can return. And so this applies to any single adult that is on campus, both staff, volunteers, etc. We do have daily cleaning that continues to occur every single evening across the school. And so that is done every single day. And then also additional cleaning happens when a positive case has been identified. We will ensure that the classroom is disinfected right on the spot before students return to their classroom. And so parents, you may hear of, my class had to step out while they may have just done some additional cleaning, and just know that that is totally safe. We are using disinfectants that are completely safe for all of our students, and we make sure that our students are out of the classroom for 15 minutes to give the appropriate time for this disinfectant to just make sure that it has dissolved on the desks and on the areas that they have been sprayed with. Last but not least, we do continue to communicate with our community through our means of communication. If any positive cases occur, if there is close contacts, then you'll be receiving that call. And we make sure that close contacts are sent home and asked to satisfy any of the requirements like the independent study contracts if they may need to do those. But these are all just steps that are happening every single day on campus. And just a big shout out to our custodians. I know we've shouted out our nurse and our health attendants clerk, but also our custodians who are continuing to help us with just cleaning every single night. And then whenever we do have the occasional case that pops up on campus, just doing those additional cleaning throughout the classroom. Now, we've received a lot of questions on the Padlet, and thank you again, parents, for sending that in about just our mask mandates. A lot of the questions that we had on the Padlet referred to, we see a lot of students not wearing their masks outdoors, or sometimes we see staff members that are not wearing their masks outdoors at egress. Does that mean that they're not using them inside of the classrooms? And so we want to take some time to just clarify what the policies that we're following here at Feaster. And so again, these are direct policies, not only from CDC and California Department of Health, but also our district. And so masks always need to be worn indoors by staff members and students. Masks do not need to be worn outdoors or when eating lunch or drinking water. However, we do encourage, parents, if you are encouraging your students to wear masks outdoors, that is completely fine. It's not something that we enforce, again, because we are following just CDC guidelines and CDHP. However, we do ensure that students, once they are inside of the classrooms, we are making sure that every single student does have a mask over their nose and mouth. But again, outdoors, they are able to take them off. If students, for whatever reason, do not show up with a mask on campus at their ingress points, so whether it's at Zone A, Zone B, and Zone C, we do have additional masks. Every single teacher does have also additional masks within their classrooms as well. And out and about at lunch, even as students, we know that they lose them, they'll put them in their pockets, and then, before they know it, they don't have them on their person. We make sure our noon duties also have them. And so rest assured that we're continuing to reinforce this every single day with our students on campus. All right, and the final question that we had here is, what can parents do to keep students and staff healthy? So first and foremost, do not send your child to school if they are sick or displaying any COVID-like symptoms. Please continue to communicate with the health office if your child is not feeling well. Again, we'll be able to determine and to guide you if in case you don't know, if you want to tell us just what are some of the symptoms that your child is experiencing, we're happy to walk you through whether they should stay home or actually come to campus. You may call the health office if you have any additional questions, and our number is listed there, 422-8397, and you'd want to ask for Miss Tommy, who is our nurse, or Miss Melissa, who's our attendant health clerk.
Dr. Slayman, I just want to add one more point to that, if we can go back to that slide, and it goes back to the sense of community, right? And as a Feaster community, we all have to do our part to make sure that everyone is staying healthy and everyone is staying safe. And so definitely while we're on campus, we implement the rules that and guidelines that we need to ensure that. But certainly within the Chula Vista community, and even the greater San Diego community, we need to all continue to do our part to make sure that we're minimizing that spread and being mindful that our students are the ones who need to come to school, and they are the ones that at this point don't have the option of a vaccination. So I think it's all of our responsibilities to continue to make sure that we are taking those extra precautions to ensure the health and wellness of our entire community.
Thank you, Dr. Slayman and Dr. Dominguez, for such a thorough presentation. And I know parents that there was a lot of information. So if you have questions, the Padlet is still going to be available for you. These are some of the questions that were asked here. I'm not going to answer every question because some of them have already been answered here. But again, in regards to personnel wearing masks, even YMCA coaches, if they're indoors in a classroom, then they are required to wear a mask. If they're outdoors performing an activity out in the open, then that is when adults are not and students are not required to wear a mask. And then there were some questions regarding ingress and egress, and the process of us getting students into the school and then also picking up. Please understand that we do have over close to 1,100 students, and a large number of those students are being picked up by car on a daily basis and being dropped off. And because of COVID, in the parameters that we have right now, we are releasing the majority of our students to the front of the school. We do have some students that do get released through the south side of the school, where the middle school mainly gets released, but the majority of the students do come through the front. We are not able to do much more at this time than we are doing. We ask for your patience. We ask for your for you to, look at when you're coming in to pick up your kids. If you're coming in a little early, know that it may take a little time to get through the traffic of vehicles. And if you're coming a little late, try not to come too late. But if you wait 5-10 minutes after 3:15, you're going to come in and you may not have as much traffic. We're doing this all for the safety of your kids. And I want to remind everyone also, we start our dismissal, our major dismissal at 3:15 when our 2nd through 8th grade students get released. We are from 3:15 to 3:30. All students, all but maybe 5 or 6 are left. By 3:30, it is clear. So it's a 15-minute period that we all work through. So thank you for your patience on that. The other question is, why don't we open up our gates earlier than 8 o'clock? It is because we do not have the supervision on campus. Please understand that. That is a burden for some families that do have to work early, but unfortunately, we cannot allow students on campus before 8 o'clock because we just don't have the personnel out on campus to supervise. What we do try to have is personnel out in the front to supervise the kids that are being dropped off earlier. Again, try not to drop off kids that early. If you need to, we're going to do our best to keep them safe, but we cannot allow them on campus, especially, again, we can't allow parents on campus. One other question that was very important is that you asked, and it's a very poignant and important question, because the question is, when do we get to meet our teachers? We're not allowing parents on campus, again, for the reasons of COVID, but we will have back to school night or open house next week on the 25th. Yes, that is correct, right? On the 25th, where you will all get to meet your son and or daughter's teachers. It's going to be online. Again, please understand that we're following COVID protocols, so you will get to meet your teacher online. If for one reason or another you cannot wait until the 25th for the open house, you can always make an appointment to meet your teacher online, or if at your request and the teacher agrees, you can have an in-person meeting in the front office, everyone wearing masks for precaution. But please understand that we are trying to really keep your kids safe. As I conclude, and as we conclude this, and before we open it up to maybe questions, if anyone would like to unmute themselves, I want to remind everyone that I am extremely proud of not just the Feaster students and staff, but the community as well. All of you have been extremely graceful in understanding the difficulty in navigating through all of this. We are absolutely trying to do our best, and I know that all of you understand that. And we also know that there are times when you do get frustrated, and we're going to take into account that the stress of COVID is making everyone a little bit or making everybody go on edge. So we understand that as well, but do the same for us. Please give us grace. and understanding, and know that we also want to be safe ourselves. We want to protect ourselves so that we can protect your kids, so that we can support the community. And ultimately, we know that the last year and a half when schools were shut down, the biggest thing that the community wanted is to open up schools to get kids back in school. Well, kids are back in school right now, and we want to keep our schools open. Help us out in the community by washing your hands as often as possible. When there is a need and you have your choice to do so, wear your mask. But please make sure to understand that when you're coming to school, you send your kids to school. That is the policy. The kids do need to wear a mask when they're indoors. It's not our policy. We're not playing politics with this. We're trying to make sure everyone is safe within the parameters that we have. I wanted to share that because truly that is what we want on a daily basis. We want our kids to be safe. We want you to be able to drop off your kids and feel comfortable knowing that at the end of the day, you will receive your kid intact, safe, and healthy. And unless, unfortunately, we have to call you because there was an incident or your kid, unfortunately, was a close contact and potentially a COVID, situation. Thank you again for joining us. But before that, if anyone has a question, you will have the ability to unmute yourself. If you click on your on your mouse, the button of the screen, you should be able to see a hand on the reactions icon if you have a question. So we'll give it a couple of minutes. If anyone would like to unmute themselves to ask a question, just go ahead and unmute and ask it, or go ahead and raise your hand and we'll ask and we'll answer the question. Thank you all. I don't see any virtual hands being raised. So thank you for joining us today. One other thing, parents, if one of your friends, family friends, a parent of another student wasn't able to come in today to this meeting because they didn't get this message, please let them know to please review our weekly messages that we send out with all this information on there, so that hopefully we'll get more parents and more community coming to our forums for information for all of you to be updated. When in doubt, remember, please call the front office so that we can answer your questions. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.